E3 2016 is over, and overall, it was pretty good. Microsoft's press conference showcased a promising future for their hardware. Aisha Taylor was even more entertaining this year during Ubisoft's press conference, and Bethesda did a pretty good job considering this is only their second year at E3. Although, in terms of pure content, EA had one of the worst presentations I've ever seen. But to balance everything out, Sony had one of the most well-paced gaming presentations ever, and I think most of us can agree on that. Anyways, today I'm here with the top 10 best games of E3 2016. This isn't just a list of games that have been announced. Instead, this is a list of the games that left the biggest impression on us, whether they were announced this year or not. Before we start, a few games that didn't make this list but still deserve an honorable mention are Quantic Dream's Detroit Become Human, Titanfall 2, Quake Champions, and Ubisoft's surprisingly exciting extreme sports game, Steep. While these games aren't necessarily the ones I'm looking forward to the most, these are the games that were the best of the show. Starting the list off at number 10 is Days Gone by Sony Bend. Are you sick of post-apocalyptic zombie games? I am surprisingly not. Sony Bend, the makers of the Siphon Filter series, as well as most recently the Vita's Uncharted Golden Abyss, is working on a new third-person open-world zombie action game called Days Gone. You take control of ex-biker Deacon St. John, yes that is his actual name, in a personal tale survival that I'm already slightly emotionally invested in. We got to see a moving trailer about the character and the world in which this takes place, and we also got to see an actual part of the game. While showing off the gameplay was a disappointing way to close the conference, and while the actual active shooting does look pretty dated, seeing zombies act almost like a wave of water, as well as seeing how intense and beautiful this game is, makes me excited to experience Sony Bend's first console game in over 10 years. Number 9. Horizon Zero Dawn by Guerrilla Games. First unveiled through a beautiful trailer and gameplay demo during last year's E3, Guerrilla Games' newest IP is currently one of the most anticipated games exclusive to PS4. We already know the basic premise and setup for the game's narrative, and we received another well-made trailer for the game just before E3 started. But at E3, we got to see a few minutes of gameplay during Sony's conference, and I can safely say I am more excited than ever for this game to come out. What you see is not a vertical slice of the game. This is what the game is going to look, run, and play like. While this may sound like an amateur thing to say, Horizon truly looks like a combination of the best games that have come out in the past 5 years. In some ways, it looks like a mixture of Far Cry, Mass Effect, and the newest Tomb Raider. I was a little skeptical that this game wouldn't live up to its full potential over time, but as of now, I'm convinced it's going to be amazing. Horizon Zero Dawn comes out on February 28th. Number 8. Gwent, the Witcher card game by CD Projekt Red. I'm admittedly not a fan of many non-traditional card games, which is ironic because I get paid to deal cards. But when I finally got my hands on The Witcher 3, I was stunned as to how addicted I got to playing the game inside the game known as Gwent. I'm obsessed with Gwent, so much that I bought physical copies of the game's expansion packs so I could have access to real-life Gwent cards. So I was pretty happy when Microsoft announced that Gwent would be its own video game. And that's literally all it is, it's just Gwent, and I'm very excited for it. If you don't know how Gwent works, please pick up The Witcher 3. Seriously, it's the best game of the generation so far, and that's not a hyperbole. But yay, we're Gwent! Number 7. Spider-Man by Insomniac Games. Man, do I feel like an idiot. I confidently predicted that Sucker Punch, the creators of Infamous and Sly Cooper, were developing their own Spider-Man game for PS4. But instead, we have Insomniac Games working on the new Spider-Man game, and honestly, I feel much more confident with this in the hands of Insomniac instead. After recently remaking their stunning masterpiece Ratchet & Clank, new gamers now have proved that Insomniac seems to be the king of polish. While we don't know much about the game itself, it visually looks amazing. A video game about one of my favorite characters being made by one of my favorite video game developers? Come on, this has to be amazing! But I guess we'll learn more about it soon enough. Number 6. South Park: The Fractured But Whole by Ubisoft. Oh my god, that name was genius! Oh, jeez. When Trey Parker and Matt Stone walked on stage, I knew this was going to be my favorite moment of Ubisoft's conference. Taking place immediately after The Stick of Truth, The Fractured But Whole, oh, best name ever, has everyone in South Park switching from fantasy to superheroes, which means you, the douchebag, have to start over as a superhero. While they tweak the combat in some impressive ways, we're all here to be immersed in what seems to be an even funnier game than the first one, which sounds almost impossible, considering that The Stick of Truth is one of the funniest games I've ever played. With a beautiful cast of characters, perfect comedy, and the amount of jokes being made at both Marvel and DC, this looks to be one of the most purely entertaining games of the year. The Fractured But Whole comes out on December 6th. Number 5. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a game we haven't seen anything of in the past 2 years. The new Zelda game for both Wii U and X finally has a name that's starting to grow on me, and we didn't just get a simple trailer for the game. We received literally hours of gameplay. What I can't stress enough is that this isn't simply an open world version of Zelda. Nintendo is taking bigger steps beyond that. You can literally go wherever you want, discover, explore, and attack anything in any order, and you can go through the entire game without experiencing the story. The game is graphically and artistically stunning, the music is as beautiful as expected, and the fact you can explore this world at your heart's content is perfect for a Zelda game. As amazing as this is, there's something about the game that makes it feel dated, and at the moment I can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe things will be different when we get our hands on it. It's been a while since Skyward Sword, the last Zelda game for consoles, came out, so when you mix that with how gorgeous and exciting the Zelda is, the wait is almost unbearable. Breath of the Wild comes out during the beginning of 2017. Number 4. Prey by Arkane Studios. While I predicted that Bethesda would re-announce Prey 2 this year, I don't think any of us had expected this. This is simply a new story that takes place in the same universe as the original Prey. All we got was a short teaser trailer setting up the basic premise of the game, and it's one of the best trailers of the year so far. Mixing the already scary alien universe of Prey with the main character going through some serious psychological problems, this is a recipe for a game that will immerse me in its story and world, as well as have the ability to crawl under my skin. While it may not be the game we're looking for, I'm excited to experience a true sci-fi psychological thriller. Number 3. Death Stranding by Kojima Productions. This is the most Hideo Kojima thing I think we've ever seen. After Kojima walked on stage to the soundtrack of Mad Max, he unveiled a teaser for his new game running in real time on whatever engine this is. Norman Reedus, who's supposed to star in Kojima's Silent Hills, is the protagonist for Death Stranding, so it's nice to see that the two are still working together. The trailer consists of a naked Reedus hugging a baby that disappears, he gets covered in oil, and is surrounded by dead fish while staring at mysterious figures in the sky. Whatever action game Kojima's making, it looks to be a beautiful, unique experience, and unique AAA games are exactly what we're missing in the gaming industry. So, go ahead Kojima, blow us away. I can't be the only one that lost control during the beginning of the PlayStation conference when we saw Kratos walking out looking incredible. I wonder what this game's gonna be called. God of War Odin's Wrath? That could work. How about Return of the Day? Yeah, it's probably a no. Maybe God of War... Oh, I guess we couldn't think of a name for it. Well, nice try. It turns out it's gonna be called God of War... Oh, it's just God of War. Well, congratulations, Carlton. You got it right. While they may update the title in the future, the PS4 God of War looks like a welcome, vastly different change compared to the rest of the series in terms of style, presentation, gameplay, and tone. Instead of being based on Greek mythology, this is in fact based on Norse mythology. Instead of fixed camera angles, the camera is close to Kratos, similar to how it is in The Last of Us. But more importantly, Kratos doesn't seem to be a vicious asshole anymore. Well, he probably still is, but you can tell he's trying to restrain himself and be in more control of his emotions because now he seems to be partnered up with his son. Wait, what? Is this a reboot of the God of War story, but this time he didn't murder his family? Or is this the son of one of the dozens of women Kratos banged throughout the series? Who knows? But the dynamic the two characters have sets up the tone for the game, and it made me emotionally care about Kratos maybe for the first time. The combat looks more deliberate and personal, but the gore and intense violence should most likely be present throughout the entire game. And like every other God of War game, this will graphically push the boundaries of its respected hardware. I can't wait for Sony to shed some more light on the newest God of War so we can have a better understanding about what's going on in Kratos' newest adventure. And at number 1, we have Resident Evil 7. I don't know about you guys, but to me, the biggest jaw-dropping moment of this year's E3 was the reveal of Resident Evil 7. After announcing the release date of the PlayStation VR, they then decided to show off some VR games and experiences. What we got to see was a slow, foreboding first-person horror game. While it first looked like just another indie horror game, for a game that I wasn't even playing, I was impressed with how on edge I was just by watching someone play a game. After the short demo, we got a trailer with a very out-of-place song playing in the background to then learn that this isn't a random horror game. This is Resident Evil 7. This is unlike any other Resident Evil game ever made, and I am beyond relieved to see that Capcom is trying something different with the series. While the first 3 games were slow, tense horror games with fixed camera angles, the next 3 games were third-person action games but were surprisingly just as intense. To see that the next main Resident Evil title will be a first-person survival horror game, as a giant Resident Evil fan, I almost cried. And then the game will now be fully playable in PlayStation VR from beginning to end, which means I probably will cry. And the demo is available on PS4 right now. We all wanted to change the Resident Evil series, and now we have it. Resident Evil 7 comes out on January 24th. So there we have it. These were my favorite games at this year's E3. But which games are you super duper pumped for? Just comment below and let me know. Again, thank you for watching, and stay fresh.